Never underestimate the contacts that you make in a job. No matter how menial you may see your position, that's just one of those lessons. Just do a good job wherever you are, wherever you're placed. Just do a good job. And I'm telling you, somebody's respecting you and will be there to back you up at some point. Not that that's why you're doing it. You're doing it because that's what you're about. But at the same time, that's how I started Henry Bendel. There was one Thursday or maybe 2 Thursdays in the month, but I didn't even know that. I just popped up one day with a garment bag on my back. It was before Instagram, and everybody could just Google you and see what you're about in your face in that moment. You just have to kind of impose yourself. You know?
I love it. You're like, I'm taking it.
I was raised better than this, but here goes. Got some clothes in the bag. Can I just show them to you?
Byron Lars is an American designer known for his bold prints, decadent overlays, and intricate illustrations. In 1991, the California native stepped out on his own to put what he calls a twist on the American classics, a collection that would propel him into instant fame. His designs have been spotted on several celebrities, from Natalie Portman and Angela Bassett all the way to Michelle Obama. He was also one of the first Black designers to collaborate with Barbie, creating a spectrum of fabulous melanated dolls for over a decade. After over 30 years in the industry, Byron has rebranded and launched a new line, In Earnest, inspired by the designer's father and his middle name. Check out our conversation about his journey. This is certainly a dream come true for me. Talking with you, the legendary Byron Lars.
You got that.
Yes. I know about we'll talk about In Earnest and sort of the direction that you're taking there. But, I really want to start at the beginning. I really want to go back to just your early days in El Cerrito. What was that like? I know the baggy pants and, that was going on. But what was it like growing up there? And what sort of led to the baggy pants and the fashion design and sort of your desire to become a designer?
I will get to all of that, but now I notice that you're horizontal and I'm vertical. Should I turn my phone?
Oh, no, you're good. It's audio only.
Oh,
yes.
Awesome.
That's why I was like, okay. Oh my God. I got the backdrop and everything.
See, I would have been over there.
It is audio only. Yes, you could be in a Snuggie somewhere, whatever you need.
Okay. So the baggy pants, back to your question. Actually, unlike most fashion designers who knew that they were interested in fashion when they were small children, that wasn't me. Although I remember every significant event that happened to the family or in my life, I can tell you what everybody was wearing.
Wow.
So clearly somewhere in there, it was some import to me. So anyway, it came along that my friend and neighbor, my grandmother, so she made herself all these great clothes all the time. We loved clothes in high school. Wanted her to make me a pair of baggy pants, and she flat out said no.
Do it yourself.
Yeah. But you can use my machine, which was completely generous of her. But I was like, well, if I must.
Wow. I love it. I'm from California as well. I'm from Southern California, Colton, which is an hour east of LA.
Okay.
And so most people are like, where? Huh? Where? So how would you describe El Cerrito? And did it have any impact on your design style?
It did. Actually, long before I got there, there was a legacy of fashion interest in the school. I don't know how that came to be. I don't know what the origins of that were or whatever. But anyway, there was a guy, this really cool guy that was an upperclassman who actually sewed before me. And he made his own stuff, really cool, respect the guy. So he was the one that made it okay for a guy to sew in high school without side eye and all that.
Wow. Was that something that was happening at the time in El Cerrito? Was it not?
Well, I mean, he made it happen. Wow. And he was like, I think he was like a couple years ahead of me. And he was very, very cool.
What made him cool? I'm curious. Like, were there Ray-Bans involved?
He had great style. All the girls liked him. He was good at lots of things. He's charming and all that kind of stuff.
I love it.
So he started a thing because after me, there was a guy after me there that was doing it. And I think he actually went on to fashion school and everything too. I don't know where he landed now because, it was a long time ago. And I'm underclass. Yes. You don't really know underclass.
Oh, come on. Well,
you know how that works.
But you eventually ended up at FIT. Like how,
I did.
Like, and were you there when Tracy Reese was there? Or she was at Parsons?
No, she went to Parsons,
Parsons. But you guys were friends. Were you friends before or after school?
After. Actually, I met Tracy at a Bragg event, Black Retail Action Group.
Yes, I was an intern and scholarship winner. I love Bragg. And Mr. JJ Thomas. Shout out to Mr. JJ.
Yes. It is an awesome organization.
Yes.
And up to that point, that evening, I hadn't met Tracy yet. But I'd heard really wonderful things about her from my then business partner, who was friends with her then business partner, Magdalena Lee.
Wow.
And I'd read articles about her. I'd seen her work. I respected her very much, but I didn't know that she was Black. And it never came up.
Wow.
And I got to be fully honest here. I got a little attitude when I saw her name on that roster at the Bragg event. I'm like, this is a Black retail event. It's like, well, I mean, it's great and all, but...
Right?
Which, I mean... And then somebody introduced me to her, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're Tracy?
Yes.
I guess it's like anybody who didn't see me and just saw the clothes, whatever, you never picture a Black person. You never picture a non-white person.
Yeah.
I mean, at least back then, you never would have. And which should have been very telling. The fact that we would never have even considered that someone in press, bad beyond a fashion label, is not white.
Yes. And, up there with Tracy, you, Byron Lars, were also, in my mind, elevated. Like, one of the few names that I knew back when that was back in 2007. I started off as an assistant buyer at Bloomingdales. And prior to that, Tracy Reese, Byron Lars. There weren't a lot of Black names that sort of came up when we were talking retail and buying. And even, Tracy Reese, her showroom, I remember going in and I was like, wow, I was like, where's Tracy? I think the only Black person at the time was like a model. So, I mean, but I understood why that kind of had to happen just from being on the other side. Where there were a lot of faces that look like ours. And just even when it comes to negotiations and markups, which we'll get into because I want to know how you figured all of that out.
I never did. I always had someone like jockeying for me. I usually came in and
with the big calculator.
And then kept it moving. This is the first time in this venture, In Earnest, that Sheila and I are actually with the calculators punching it all out.
Wow.
I mean, maybe that first season I did years ago, but there was always support behind, any effort back then, which honestly kind of did my experience a disservice. So I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
But it happened the way it happened, and it all happened as it should have happened, I suppose. And here we are.
And so you go to FIT, but you drop out and then start and then you just get to work. Like, were you just like, I'm over this? Like, I just want to get my like hands in it and just start doing it. Like, what was it?
Well, I'd actually transferred in from a school in California into the 4-year program. So I'd already had some schooling.
Okay.
And then, there were a lot of great opportunities at FIT. Like then a lot of companies gave money outside there and sponsor competitions and stuff. And, that financed a lot of my schooling and supplies and stuff, allowed me to travel some. But after a while, it felt like I was hanging out there more to be like the professional contestant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And which was really great experiences from all that, to allow me to see some of the world and, you know what I mean? And
you went to Monte Carlo and, met the Karl Lagerfeld. So were you just like, I'm done after that? You're like, okay, met Karl, I'm on my way.
No, I didn't get a job. I was out there looking for work and I never got it. I never came back with a job.
Wow.
So, but all the while I was in school, I did know that like it would have to come down to getting a job. So I would like look in women's wear and go on these like interviews. I really wasn't looking for a full-time job at the time, but then I wanted to just practice interviewing. And then, I got one job with this sweater company. I can't even remember the name of it, but I remember like, oh, I'm hired? It was really more, part of my educational experience is how I saw it. But when I got a job, I was like, maybe I should take this job. And I remember calling my dad and telling him, like, dude, I got a job.
They were so excited.
Are you sure you want this job? I'm like, hey, he's like, I'm here to support you, whatever your decision is. But it may be a little premature or maybe it's not. I just want you to think long and hard about it. And I did. And then at that particular juncture, I stayed in school. And then I interviewed again. And then I was like, I got another job. And then I'm like, I'm taking it.
You're like, I'm done.
And, I don't recommend that for everybody. But at the same time, I just felt like I was ready. And even if I had to go back and do it again, I think I'd probably do it the same way.
You're such an entrepreneur. Like you have that entrepreneurial spirit even then, just sort of like, I want to learn and,
Well, yes and no. There's that part of me and that other part of me that's like scared to death of everything. Yeah. But there was a trailblazer in school who was our maverick. Like the kids in my year, which we're not kids any longer, but he started a company while he was in school.
Wow.
And he got written up in women's wear. His name was Gary Gatus.
Wow.
And that was long before social media and it's hard to find anything on him, but he was really super influential to, I think, all the kids.
Wow.
When we were kids, because he was doing this out of his parents' garage. You know what I mean? Like making stuff. And I'd help him make patterns the weekend sometimes in Jersey. And he was really doing it,
Wow.
And it was really, and of course, there were some kid haters.
Of course. You always have the haters.
You always got the haters, right?
Yeah.
And then there was like his cheering section, which I was clearly a part of. That was like, dude, you are proof that this can be done.
Wow.
So
wow.
Yeah, he started that. And then seeing him do that too was just really, really kind of emboldened me to just like, let's just do it, man. Just do it.
Wow. So you start working. What led you, I believe it was in 1991, to just step out on your own and do your own line?
Well, I think at that time, there was a recession. And I'd always been afraid to start at a time when I thought things could get out of hand right away.
Yeah.
So that in a recession, what could happen? I mean, I get a few orders and
I love it.
And
Yes.
you know what I mean? And it'll be manageable. And the first order was, the first one I got myself, I marked it and graded it from all the classes I took at FIT.
Yes.
So they did pay off, the grading and all that.
Wow.
And yeah, I shipped it. But, the factory that made it, I actually met that factory because they used to make duplicate samples for one of my last job that I had.
Wow.
So never underestimate the contacts that you make in a job. No matter how menial you may see your position, it's just like, that's just one of those lessons. Just do a good job wherever you are, wherever you're placed. Just do a good job. And I'm telling you, somebody's respecting you and will be there to back you up at some point. Not that that's why you're doing it. You're doing it because that's what you're about. But at the same time, I really couldn't believe that they made my production for me. You know what I mean? It's just like, and I paid them after they finished.
Wow. That's a deal.
I was like, really? And so
I love it.
Yeah, really. So, anywho,
I love it.
Yeah, that's how I started Henry Bendel.
Yes.
That no longer exists. Used to have these open calls on.
God.
I think there was one Thursday or maybe 2 Thursdays in the month, but I didn't even know that. I just popped up one day with a garment bag on my back.
I love it.
Yeah. Now it'd be just unspeakably rude. Even then it was a little rude, but I was like, I don't know how else. Nobody's going to see me. I don't have anything. It was like before Instagram and everybody could just Google you and see what you're about, like in your face in that moment. You just have to kind of impose yourself. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. You're like, I'm taking it.
I was raised better than this, but here goes.
Here's my stuff.
Got some clothes in the bag. Can I just show them to you?
Wow. And they fell in love.
Well, they gave me an order, and they gave me the windows.
Oh my goodness.
Didn't even know. I was walking by. I was like, and there all was these baseball jacket kind of inspired dresses and stuff. And, I've only just recently pieced back together with when a subsequent women's wear article, it was Rookie of the Year. They gave me a title.
Yeah.
It was because of those baseball looking dresses that by then nobody knew about because there was that shirt thing came and kind of obliterated all that.
Wow.
Anyway, so yeah, it was pretty magical time. And that was actually a time in this city too when, or in fashion, particularly New York fashion, where the real big guys would actually see you. And it was actually about the work.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Of course they have to create some hype around it because that's always going to be a part of this, always has been.
Yeah.
But it was pretty remarkable in that, people like Polly Mellon who worked, under Anna Wintour, would actually go anywhere to find something new and great. She would physically go.
I love it.
And show up because you had to.
Yeah.
You couldn't just sit on your phone and swipe.
But you also don't get the full experience of the clothes and the craftsmanship up close.
No, you don't. Nor the personalities behind. But it takes a tremendous investment in time that people really don't have. I'm sorry. I have a call coming through and I have
it's okay.
to find it.
Oh.
I don't know. Oh, we're all audio anyway. So
yep,
it's no
we're
problem.
audio. Yes.
Great.
Totally
great.
perfect.
So, yeah. And yeah, that's just how it was then. And, the really big guys would actually get out of their offices and go see people. It was pretty remarkable.
Podcasts are awesome. And I know you love them too, or you wouldn't be here right now. But have you ever thought about starting your own? Don't worry, you don't have to be a techie, but you do need a bit of guidance so you don't make costly mistakes. My name is Sunny, and I've been podcasting for a long time. I've launched more than 15 profitable podcasts, and I'm the founder of the Independent Podcast Network. My online course, How to Launch Your Profitable Podcast in 30 Days, gives you the keys to the 5 Ps of podcasting, which is everything you need to launch and grow a successful podcast. You get unlimited access to more than 35 videos and dozens of handouts. And when you purchase my course, you're also supporting this awesome podcast because they're getting 50% of the money when you use their special link. How cool is that? Let me help you get started with your podcast. Go to podcastareawesome.com/fashion. That's podcastareawesome.com/fashion.
I love that. You know, I interviewed Lauren Ezierski. That was the first episode. That is my personal fashion icon of all time. Like, I was obsessed and still am. I would watch her show every single day because, you know, they would just do the repeats. And, you know, Lauren was like, yeah, like, you know, she would just literally run around, like, you know, like the fashion area, like, you know, 6th Avenue. She was everywhere. And like, she would physically go.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, me too. And I love Lauren. It's just like she loved it in a way that I don't even know is possible anymore, because just the physical demands of what that took to be engaged on that level all the time.
Yes.
And that wasn't just in official capacities and like, you know, and all that. It's just evening things. She was there too. You know, like, and I was there. I was young then. I was there as infrequently as possible. I'm like, look, there's work to be done. And I can't be here and there doing that at the same time.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Well, you know, speaking of that, like, where did you hang out? Where did the designers hang out, like, back in the day, like in the 90s? Like, was there a spot?
Well, apparently the spot was my block, because I lived on 24th Street between 9th and 10th Avenue.
Wow.
And can I tell you, almost so many designers lived on that block between those avenues, right across the street from each other. It's like Todd Oldham lived across the street, Isaac Mizrahi, Badgley Mishka.
Wait, is that the shot that we see at the beginning of Unzipped when he's like, you know, outside reviewing, looking at the reviews of his show? I love it. Block. Wow.
Yeah. Everybody lived there. It's just, it was so freakishly weird and odd. And also it made it kind of created a kind of Mayberry feeling.
I love it.
Fashion Mayberry.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. It felt like a town.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because this is a town, but that really made it also much more like, I don't know, less intimidating.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh, they live right here.
There was a sense of community. There was a sense of community and just sort of creating that, you know, it's like, oh, I say hello to you in the street and I see you, you know.
Yeah.
On Fashion Avenue. All right.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, it was pretty, casual that way. And it was nice.
Well, how did you define your style in the midst of all that was happening and your experiences? I know you've picked up certain techniques, but what really defined the Byron Lars style and your design aesthetic?
I think what really defined my style then, like in the pre-grunge era, was a reaction against fashion. It's like almost how that whole shirt thing happened. It was almost like really like elevating and glorifying the pedestrian, you know. Wow. And there was also a very pragmatic reason for all that, because, you know, then they had fabric jobbers, people that had like leftover rolls of fabric from other people that were much bigger than you, production. And that would then become your production fabric that you kind of hopefully count on. Sometimes it'd be there when you were ready to produce. Sometimes it wouldn't. But of course, there was always cotton shirting available.
Yes.
So there was that aspect to it also.
Wow.
And, you know, there was something like, too, that I think goes back to, I think, African-American culture about like making a silk purse out of a sow's ear, too, that was always intriguing to me. And so I think that had a lot to do with what defined my then look and what, you know, became like kind of hallmarks of what others considered my style. But that was a little intimidating too, though, like being so new and getting so much attention so early and having outsiders like tell you what you are and what you're doing and what you mean when you haven't really processed all that yourself. Wow. It's super interesting. And I've since seen like other like young designers who like are in that spotlight and they're telling you this. And it's like, and I see that struggle with them trying to like, you know, break free from some of that, still to stay true to a customer that they kind of think they understand, but they haven't completely met and gotten to know yet. And it's all very interesting.
And I could also see pressure from retailers too. Just like, we want this to be an all door piece. And you're like, wait, what? All doors.
You know, ironically, a lot of my, my aesthetic was sellable. You know what I mean? It's like we actually sold clothes pretty early on. And I didn't know to what degree until like Terry Higgins wrote this article in the New York Times recently. And of course, she interviewed like so many of the retailers from that time.
I loved it.
I'm like, what?
You know, Terry knows everyone.
Yeah, but we didn't know all that stuff was going on because like he would have been a little more demanding if we did. And they knew that. And that's why they didn't tell us.
Yep.
Anywho, so yeah, that was that's pretty much what defined the look though. A lot of you know, glorifying the pedestrian, fabric that'd be available for production without having to have high minimums and all that stuff. And
so can you, for people who don't know about the shirt thing, what was the shirt thing and why was it so impactful to your career?
The shirt thing was basically me doing riffs off men's button-down shirts, Oxford striped shirts. They were elongated, they draped, they twisted, they tied. This is all pretty like mundane now because they've been copied so many times that they're almost like language now. So if you were to see them today, you'd be like, that also? It's like, well, yeah. It's because it's kind of been around. It kind of never left. And honestly, other people kind of usurped it. So I kind of moved on.
Absolutely.
But you know what, though? We're thinking about moving back. It's time to revisit that.
I would love one of those right now. I would love one of those.
You know, Sheila, just before all the implosion of COVID, said, you know, I think it's time to do those shirts again. I'm like, I don't. I'm like, like every time we talk about the shirts, it's like they definitely need to be reimagined because nobody wants to care for cotton anymore. Nobody wants to take the time to press it, and nobody wants to spend the money to have it cared for and laundered because it's really hard to press one of those things or whatever. So we're definitely going to have to evolve the fiber content and all that stuff. But she was 100% right because at that very coterie, that was the final coterie before all of this in-person coterie. And I mean, I'm not even kidding you. I couldn't turn a corner, like just walking to get lunch without hitting a buyer that's like, you know, you need to do those shirts again. It came up so many times at that show. And I was like, okay, shirts again. But then the whole world changed and we didn't really get to it at that particular point. So, but that was the shirt thing. It's just like, you know, articles were written on them. It's like everybody was buying them, which was great. I mean, there was a couple of stores that we thought they were digging a hole out back and burying them because they were ordering so many. We were like, there's just no way you can sell all of these.
Yes.
But, again, that goes back to like a lack of experience and stuff when you're just starting from, your living room. And then like when you realize you really have an audience, that's all. And learning to know who she is and what she needs from you, even though she's responding to it, what adjustments need to be made. It's all super daunting, the learning curve, but exciting.
How do you stay inspired for the next, for each collection? How do you move with your audience, while still remaining true to yourself as an artist?
I think an essential part, at least for me, is actually liking her and wanting her to win and wanting to be a part of that.
Yeah.
That's really super inspiring. Thinking about the life she's living, what she needs that she doesn't have, what she has and might want more of that needs to come forward in some sort of way. That's super, super inspiring. And that'll never go away because as long as she exists, that'll be there. And there's new she's, you know what I mean? And just to see how diverse she is in age and lifestyle. And it really got so much larger than my perception of her, because of course you have to start narrow, I guess.
Yeah.
How could you even start at all if you didn't? And then she starts telling you who she is. And then she taps in. It's just like, oh, wow, you like that? And you're wearing that? And you see how she wears it and how she uses it and how, she brings another kind of like perspective to your perspective.
Wow.
That, just makes it all build on itself. And there's the inspiration, the girl.
Wow.
I call her girl. It's not like a girl. It's like your girl, because she's your girl, whether she's in her 20s or in her 90s.
I love
because
it.
We've had some.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. I've seen the Instagram.
Yeah. It's like, wow, now that's what I want to be when I grow up.
Wow. I know. Right? I'm taking notes. I love it. Well, I mean, your dresses have ended up on, I don't know, several celebrities, but Michelle Obama. What was that like?
Well, that was pretty mind-blowing. Yeah. That was like an OMG, OMG, OMG.
Yes.
It's it was like one of those things, you never knew when it was going to happen.
Yeah. How'd you find out? How'd you find out?
The first dress that she wore, believe it or not, it was on this PBS special where there was a Paul McCartney concert at the White House. Mm-hmm. One of those. I think it was one of the first ones. And there was a commercial probably 3 weeks before it ran. And my mom got a glimpse of it, of all please. And she called us at the office. And I was just like, Mom, I mean, I appreciate you looking out, but pretty sure.
Yeah.
Well, we investigated. I was like,
oh my God.
I call her Scoop.
Amazing.
She had the down low before everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You gotta love moms. You gotta love moms.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Were you getting calls after that, with people wanting that dress?
Yeah, but you know what? That was one of the things that we actually made for her. Because I don't even know how, I can't remember how we came to decide that was what we would make for her. And that would be the color and that would be the fabric. I didn't even recall all of that, but I do know that, the introduction to her then stylist, which was an owner of the store in Chicago.
Oh, yes. Oh my God.
Now I'm forgetting it all.
It's not Meredith. It's the one before.
No, just before Meredith.
Before Meredith.
But Meredith
But I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I know Meredith.
The best.
Fabulous.
Yeah. She and Sheila really hit it off like a house of fire.
I love it.
The start with her. So that really just cemented our, position there in the White House years. And it was really, really, really special. Really great.
I love it. I have to ask you, what is egalitarian nude? I see it in so many of your pieces, and I'm thankful for it. But for our audience, what is it?
An egalitarian nude is a lining that is just that. It is a lining that looks good on every skin type, instead of being, as a friend used to call it, prosthetic beige, which is supposed to be, I guess, white nude.
It's a great name. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be white nude, but even white skin doesn't really look like that.
Yeah.
But it, of course, looks best on white skin because it's closest to white skin. But an egalitarian nude is a nude that we took some years for us to develop. It has a rosy hue, and it has a kind of olivey net overlayer that neutralizes the rose and somehow makes it okay on everybody. It doesn't look like anybody.
Yeah.
But it looks good and correct on everybody, oddly.
Wow.
And
I didn't know about the overlays. Wow.
Yeah. And then now, to lighten it up, we've come up with a printing process to get those two colors integrated in a single layer.
Beautiful.
But it's really crucial in that whole, like, neutralizing that nude that makes it okay for everybody. Because, you know, as an African American, when you see a beautiful Black woman in a dress that has a white nude, but not even white nude, the prosthetic beige nude underneath it, it's honestly, it's so demoralizing. I don't have words. I have a visceral response to it, and I always have. And so, but then it's like, conversely, I wouldn't want a nude that's just for Black women either. And what does that mean? There's so many shades of Black that, what would that be?
So true.
And so I'm like, then I'd just be doing what's been done to our girls. So I'm like, there's got to be some kind of solution here. And, you know, I didn't know that there was, but over just adjusting and taking a look, we arrived at that egalitarian nude, and it's
genius.
Really been a game changer.
Genius. I mean, is this trademarked? I mean, I feel like it should be.
It's not, and honestly, nobody's, as far as I know, I haven't seen anybody copy it, because I still see a whole lot of beige out there.
Yeah.
And it's, hey, you know, because I guess, like I said, I mean, if you don't see it as a priority, or you don't make clothes that require it, then I guess it's just a non-issue. And since the other solution has sold so well for so many years, I guess people are like, it's not broken, so we're not going to fix it. Well, just because it's functioning somewhat still doesn't mean that it can't use some adjustment.
Agreed. Well, we appreciate you for that so much and your work. I love it so much. I love your dresses. You know, totally random question. Have you, or are you considering maybe doing like a coffee table book with some of your illustrations, because they're just so beautiful?
Well, thank you so much for that. I mean, we haven't really thought about it, but it's, now that you bring it up, I guess
putting the bug in your ear. I mean, they're gorgeous. And even in the Vogue article, I was like, oh my goodness. It was just one after the other.
Well, thank you so much. Sheila's like off camera telling me like t-shirts, because actually, even though we have not talked about a coffee table book, of course, we are actually doing these illustrations on t-shirts now.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And
wait,
I got to give her all the credit for that, because they're, you know what? On our website. Yeah. In Earnest Official, www.inearnestofficial.com. And they're on there. And I can show you some here. I know this is audio, but
check it out, you guys. Oh, so I love it. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Okay.
And inside of the back is like some backstory of the inspiration and all that kind of stuff. So nobody else sees that but you.
Byron, okay. Yes, that is on our list. Listeners, check it out. I'm excited. I just got super like, I have to go get it. But
thank you. And they've been very practical in terms of, the life we're living right now.
Yeah.
Which is honestly why she's like, listen, everybody loves your sketches. Everybody loves t-shirts. You know what I mean? Everybody can afford a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And so we should be making t-shirts at this time when this is what people are wearing and what they're doing. But even beyond that, too, is she also called out, and which is very true, it's like, we love merchandising t-shirts just like real people do, back to our fancy things.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we couldn't in the past because we don't make the t-shirt. So then it's kind of like, well, why is that there if it's not yours? Or if it's a decoy and you're not really making it and all that kind of stuff. So now, problem solved.
I love it. I love it. I cannot do this interview without asking you about Barbie. Like, how did that, all the Black, I just remember my cousin, he has passed away, unfortunately, but he had the most amazing Barbie collection. And growing up, Byron Lars, like he has them. My cousin Vincent, I learned about Madonna and Janet Jackson, Gem and the Holograms. And of course, Barbie, and Byron Lars was like on his like stand, like all of your Barbies. So like, how did that happen? And you collaborated them for quite some time.
I did. It was, what was supposed to have been one doll, ended up being so successful that it ended up being like 16.
Yeah.
Like each new year, there was a new doll. And, it was really, really great. But it started off kind of rocky, you know what I mean? Because in the beginning, there were some really, really strict ideas about what you could look like, what you could wear, what you could do. And, for a creative, that's just kind of like shackles that sometimes like there's like the paddock that you need to like be your creative best. And then there's just shackles where there's nowhere to go. So why would you want to, remain?
Yeah.
It was like, honestly, after that first song, I was like, having like some roots visions, like breaking free, running.
I know exactly what you mean, though.
And then, but the sales of the first doll created a little more freedom for the second doll.
Love that.
And for second doll sales created more freedom for the third. And then there were some people retired and, new people came in with like new vision. And then, of course, we had great sales. So then there was even more freedom. And their design team is so amazing and so capable and so excited about pushing the boundaries that it really just opened up for this really special moment in time, an expression of Blackness that I didn't realize how momentous it was in that way until I started meeting women in the world who would share to me how important that was. Like,
it was transformative for me. I didn't see many, dolls that looked that were
I was just, I'm like, they all looked cool to me. I wanted them all to look different. But then when you start seeing how big that is in terms of like, little girls dream through Barbie. Yeah. And these were grown women, of course, who, when they were little girls, didn't have that kind of beautiful, representation of who they longed to be or to dream through and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, there she was, like, for instance, the darkest hue one, we had to like push for that for years.
Wow.
Years. And finally, when it happened, it sold so well. It was like, of course. This is just another facet of beauty that has not been represented here. But when I met, women with tears in their eyes from that experience of seeing, a Barbie like dark like me.
Yes.
And like, with some textured hair and all that. It was like, and honestly, it changed things because now,
right?
Barbie
You opened the door for Kimora and everybody else.
Well, and rightfully so. A door that should have been opened long before I got there. But, it was only because it was time for that door to flung open and taken off its hinges.
You're such a revolutionary, Byron. I cannot. It's such a revolutionary. I love it. So, speaking of the Terry Egan's article, New York Times article last year, she mentioned, she talked about some of the diversity efforts in the industry that were happening. And your response was, which I love, I view it with great skepticism. As long as the protests are in the news, these moves toward Blacks will be a priority. But after that, I see a very sharp pivot in another direction. Do you still feel that way now?
I'm feeling a little more confident that there is going to be some significant change and lasting change. And I think only because the conversation's not going away.
No.
It's only escalating. And our irrefutable value is just being celebrated once and for all. It's and that's not even just to say, hey, yes, African Americans have a lot to contribute, and we have contributed so much to this country. And so have other brown people, yellow people, red people. We all have something to contribute. And that's really just what it's about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's it. Absolutely. It's like, I don't want you buying anything from me because I'm Black. Mm-hmm. But I don't want you eliminating me from the field of things to be considered because I'm Black either.
Yeah.
Well, where do you think the industry is going now? Like now that it's like post-pandemic, we're peeking back outside of our homes now. New York Fashion Week is going to be in person. Everyone's sort of like leaving the nest. Obviously, people are interacting more digitally and virtually. Like, where do you sort of see things going, like as for the industry as a whole?
I don't think this hybridization of digital versus in person is going anywhere because it's just too darn convenient.
Yeah.
And there were some assessments that we made interacting with customers digitally with their first time seeing something, in that if a garment doesn't resonate from a digital screen, it probably doesn't have a reason to exist in this time. Wow. That's pretty sad because there's a lot of great things that just don't translate digital. Like a great little black dress.
Yeah.
That's like, but if it's not textural or really dynamic in its silhouette that like just makes a statement on that screen, it hasn't got a chance.
Wow.
And maybe it's better to know that in the appointment rather than having people fall in love with that fabric and and love that dress because it is a great dress, and then just have it die at retail because it's got to perform for others who have not had the advantage of seeing it in person.
Wow.
On the screen. So there's some things that just aren't going away. And that was the reality before COVID. We just hadn't really all of us come to that reality.
Yeah.
We kind of been forced to because there have been so many great clothes that we have. And you're like, why isn't that selling? It's so great.
Right.
Well, there it is.
All the time.
Yeah.
But your craftsmanship, every single piece, every detail is just so you can feel your passion and just your artistry, like from the feel to just
thank you so much. Thank you for that. It's
where do you find these fabrics, Byron? I gotta ask, where are you finding these?
A lot of them we end up making. I mean, like sometimes like, we'll find a great lace, but then we'll put a print on it, or we'll find a Georgette that doesn't have the texture. So we'll laser cut it. And sometimes we find a great fabric. It's great.
You have so much fun with those laser cuts. I'm obsessed.
Thank you. And then, a lot of it, in the mixing and the collaging is just like, well, this fabric is way out of our price structure. But if we use this much with these fabrics, we can justify it and it won't end up pricing up to something that's just like
right. A $5,000 dress.
Exactly. And so a lot of that governs our decision making and how these things come together. A lot of it I know for sure is divine intervention because, I'm not a very orderly person. I can destroy a design space and we've counted 2 hours. It takes me 2 hours to go from a completely clean, sterile place to fabric and trim everywhere.
I love it.
But a lot of times in that mess, while I'm trying to find something through it, what's happening in the pile that I'm creating while looking for that thing is something amazing that should happen. It just like happens on its own.
Wow.
And so I'm like, nice one, God.
Thanks, God.
Sleep shouldn't happen.
I love it. Well, you have been in the industry for over 3 decades now. So what would you say is the key to continued success as an independent designer? Because a lot of our listeners are designers who would like to have great careers, but may not necessarily have, some of the opportunities that other designers are afforded.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I think fashion is something that I feel like finds you. You don't find it because, it's certainly one of those things that, I mean, if my logical self could choose, I would never ever have chosen this. It's so much work and so much struggle and so much of everything, but yet I can't imagine myself doing anything else. I guess it's like a parent with their children. It's just like, really? You really wanted to have kids? I mean, you had 2 and they were nightmares. And then you had a 3rd and you love your kids. Wait, let me get...
Yeah.
I guess it's, not that deep, but at the same time,
it's so true. It is.
It's like with all the struggle and, other stuff, you just love it and you can't not love it. You can't unlove it.
No, I tried to divorce fashion and it just kept coming back. And it's like, fine. Like, this is who I am.
It won't sign the paper.
He won't sign the papers. I love it. Well, this, what is one piece of advice that you wish someone would have told you when you first started?
I wish someone would have stressed to me the importance of being involved in more of the business of fashion rather than just the design aspects of it. Now, it's a very rare opportunity or situation that anybody has where they're not thrust to the forefront of the business because that's the only person that's there is you to do it. But, my situation was pretty unique in that there was a support system like very shortly after I started and probably too soon after I started because you really need that slow time to kind of like learn your business before being a star. I know everybody young wants to be big overnight, and like all this stuff, but it's like there's something really super potentially damaging from that. like that premature growth, and that, first of all, it's super damaging to your self-esteem because your business gets to a point where you can't possibly be yourself, you know, in terms of your business acumen or emotionally to even deal with some of that.
Yeah.
So it, you know, nice problems to have. I know is what many people would say, but problems are problems. And I do feel blessed to have had that perspective to know that. But once you've known it and you've seen it, and then you see the next guy in line for it, you're like, oh, steady there, little tomato.
Yeah.
Hang on in, it's going to be fine.
Yes.
You know? So slow and steady winning the race is really something that of high value. Do not think that just because things are not happening for you overnight, that that's a bad thing. That's the best thing oftentimes.
Wow.
You be ready when they do.
Amazing. Well, you know, everyone who comes on the show, I ask them to recall one of their favorite fashion moments, one of your favorites of all time. It could be professional, personal, or something you witnessed. It just needs to be one. It doesn't have to be the ultimate.
Right away.
Oh!
It was a moment on a Carolina Herrera runway. And it was a triplet, you know, before in runway shows, they'd have like doubles.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Triples. Well, this was designed to have been a triple with Diane DeWitt, Dalma, and Munya. Munya was an African model who was like Saint Laurent's house model, and she was amazing. And they were all holding in evening capes with beautiful gowns underneath at the head of the runway. And Munya would not move. She was in the center. And Dalma and Diane DeWitt were looking at each other like, well, what are we going to do? And they just had to go. They just had to go. And then they dropped the capes. And then they walked back, showed the beautiful evening gowns. And Munya's still standing there at the head.
Stop.
Waits for them to exit. And then she removes the cape. And then proceeds to wield it like a toreador.
Yeah.
Whoosh.
Yes.
Whoosh. Yards and yards of fabric. Walking down the entire...
I love it. They had no idea.
And then she dragged it on the floor on the way back.
Oh,
It's like,
that sounds
okay,
glorious.
mic drop.
That sounds glorious. Well, thank you so much, Byron, for being on the show. Again, what is the website where people can find you, your work, and shop and support?
It is www.inearnestofficial.com.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on A Fashion Moment.
Thank
It's been
you
a
so
pleasure.
much.
Like a dream come true. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Sheila. Thanks so much for joining me for this week of A Fashion Moment. If you like what you hear, we'd love for you to join our community of listeners and spread the word about the show. We also want to hear from you. Share your favorite fashion moments and dream guests with us by sending an audio clip or email to afashionmomentpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can tag us on Instagram at A Fashion Moment, and you could be featured on next week's episode. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and let us know what you think. Until then, see you next time for another fashion moment. Podcast production by Rebecca Rashid and John Taylor Williams. Digital media production by Megan Porras.
This recording carries a Creative Commons 4.0 international license. Thanks to Patrick Patricios for their song, Hot Coffee.